Hi everyone. Good day, welcome, welcome. If you are just joining us for the first time, this is our topic of the month, and we are talking about anxiety and panic disorder alongside confusion. Hello, Lexis, welcome, you guys. So again, today we're talking about anxiety and panic disorder with special emphasis on confusion among students in school. And we have Tammy of Beverly Yours, who would be having this conversation with us. I would just let me try to add her while I also put down the topic. So also in the meantime, please use the question sticker to leave us your questions while the hi Mikey. Use the question sticker to leave us questions if you have any of them regards to anxiety or panic disorder or confusion. So like I said, our speaker today is, or the person I'll be having this conversation with is Tammy Campbell of Beverly Yours. I would just request her to be on this live now so we can get started. So I'm going to just request her. Okay, great. She's here already. All right. Hi, Tammy. Can you hear me?
Hi. I can hear you. I couldn't hear you before, but we are now.
Oh, really? Please, can everybody hear me? If you can hear me, just leave a comment saying I hear you or a thumbs up, please. So I know I'm not talking to myself. All right. Thank you guys for joining. Please leave me a comment or let me know. Let me know. But Tammy, you can hear me, right? Thank you, Miss Wigwe. I hope I pronounced that right. All right. So all right, so like I was saying earlier before Tammy joined, this at Sag Bible Foundation, we are a youth-led not-for-profit mental health organization here in Nigeria. And every month we have conversations around mental health just so we can promote mental wellness and also, raise the advocacy for mental health. So that's what we do. We have different conversations every month. And for this month, the conversation is on anxiety and panic disorder with special emphasis on confusion, especially for students in school. So if you know any student, please just send them this live, let them join. It's important, they need it. All right. All right. So first of all, Tammy, I'll let you introduce yourself and we'll pick it up from there.
Okay, so my name is Tammy. I'm Nigerian. I right now I run an integrative coaching school called Beverly Yours. It's quite new, still in the early stages of forming. Um, I studied in Nigeria in secondary school, and a lot of what I am now and how my path has been carved was or is as a result of the experiences that I had in school in Nigeria after, when I went on to do tertiary education and all of that. So yes, that's the summary of what I'm about.
Okay. So now, Tammy, tell us, what do you do? What do you do, like outside of or together with Beverly Yours? What do you do at Beverly Yours? And if there's anything else you like to just tell us, that would be great.
That's it. I'm a life coach. I
All
work as a
right.
I work with people. I'm very passionate about people and just seeing them develop and coming out of a place of struggle and helping them shift limiting beliefs, shift perspectives of life that are not working for them. Um, yeah, and my focus, usually my passion it lies in students because that's what I resonate with, and also people that struggle in career and stuff like that because most of the time, at least in my experience, because I read a lot about people and stories, I read a lot of success stories. A lot of people seem to have known what they wanted to be, what they wanted to do,
Mm.
And I don't know where they get the clarity from. You hear stories where people will be like, oh, I knew since I was three, I started singing at three. So I joined the choir, and from there, we just
That's actually good.
ended up doing this thing that, you know, that just came naturally to you. It wasn't a struggle. You didn't have to try
Mm.
something and then realize that, oh, okay, this is not the thing for me. So my journey has been more of one about um, discovering what I don't want to do, rather than just knowing from the beginning and following my passion. So, yeah.
That's very good. I completely agree with you on what you said. You know, in our society, somehow you still find people who say, "Oh yeah, you know, it's just a part of me. It just came just like that." You know, and for some people like myself, and maybe you and any other person on this live right now, they'll be like, "Hmm, so why is it not coming to me naturally too?" You know, so it's almost kind of like that thing because when we hear people say, "Oh, you know, I just wanted to be a medical doctor because I had this so much passion for people. I really want to understand medicine. I want to help people do this." And right from I was a child, I've been able to help people do this, and they're like, "Hmm, okay, okay." So yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Even
Sorry,
people in creative.
yes,
Hello?
come
Sorry,
again. I can hear you
can you
now.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay, even people in creative fields, because those are the ones I read about the most. Because I have this page, I have a page on Instagram. It's called Afro Soul Arena. It's really fun. Every week we do like trivia. It's trivia like questions on music industry and stuff like that. It's really fun. So I read a lot about musicians and artists in general, and I find that I don't know, it just comes to them. Like they just have this eureka moment. I don't know if you watched Thames' podcast, the Leading Vibe Radio or something. I think it's called, yeah, Leading Vibe Radio. Now, the first episode was a few weeks ago, and her manager asked, I think it was her manager that asked her how she knew or when she knew that she wanted to go into music. And she was like, that question feels like being asked how you knew you could breathe.
Hmm.
You see?
Wow.
And I'm like, "Oh, how do you guys reach this level of knowing?"
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't, like, it's amazing. I love it because I don't believe in struggle.
Yeah.
I don't buy into struggle. I think
Into
it
that
really
struggle
damages people.
mentality.
Struggle, suffering. Mm-mm. I don't subscribe to it because I feel like it does, in my experience, it does more harm than good. So I love it for them, but that has not been my experience. I've had to figure my life out the hard way.
Okay, so we'll get to that part of figuring your life path out and all of that. But this being the topic of the month, are you familiar with anxiety or panic disorder?
Yes, I am familiar with both because I live with both.
Okay, great. So then, this is amazing. You are the perfect person to have this Instagram live session with. All right. So
Thank you
just
for having me.
just to start the conversation more, what exactly is anxiety disorder? You know, just in simple terms, so people don't understand because we're not here to blow plenty grammar, so they can understand what we mean, right? What is anxiety disorder?
Say that it is experiencing intense levels of fear and worry to the point that you have physical symptoms, like you express physical symptoms. So it's either your heart rate is going up, or you're experiencing trembling, like your body is shaking, or you feel something uncomfortable in your stomach. I've heard people say that they feel a tightening in the stomach, or they
Yeah.
can't breathe. Some people have shortness of breath, they're struggling to
Hmm.
breathe, or, and it's usually triggered by a variety of things. Like, um, for me, something as little as, because there's also a spectrum of it, like there's a range of it. So there's like people that really experience intense levels of anxiety, but then there's also the, stage frights and those ones. So as coming on this live was
Okay.
very, can you hear me?
Could you guys hear us? So I don't know what's happening. You're frozen, Tammy.
I'm frozen. Oh,
Okay, yeah, I think I can hear you now.
sorry. So can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, loud and clear.
Yeah. So something as simple as coming on this live, I had to do a prep. I had to breathe.
Hmm.
I had to, do some words of affirmations and just, just tell myself that it's people like me that are going to listen to me. So it's something that I live with, and I know it. I
Hmm.
know it. And I think my anxiety symptoms intensified from the journey, like my experience in education. That's why I'm very passionate about this thing, because I feel that that's confused, like making decisions from a place of not knowing, it can lead to a whole bunch of things. You can either get lucky and end up on the right path without having to go through struggle, but then it can also, you can get on the wrong path, or let me not call it the wrong path, because it's also a process of learning, but
Yeah.
on a path that is just a lot, like it's too much.
Mhm. Okay.
So,
So just to add to what you had mentioned, I wanted to point out because I've had lots of people, especially in outside Bible or in my private practice as a therapist, I've had people come in and oh yes, I have anxiety, I have social anxiety, and you find out they're self-diagnosed, right? So, but I just wanted to put it out here that please, when we're talking about anxiety and panic disorder, here we're talking about it as a disorder. We're not talking about it as the anxiety or the anxiousness that you feel when you want to do something. So there's a difference. We all feel scared here and there every time, most times in our life. We all experience bits and bouts of anxiety here and there. However, there's a big difference between anxiety disorder and just feeling anxious. All right, there's a big difference there. With anxiety disorder, the key word to note is consistent irrational fear. Irrational fear is a consistent word. So you find people who are experiencing anxiety disorders completely scared of the worst of the worst of the worst things, and it's not something that they can control and say, okay, how Nigerians will tell you, how people will tell you, snap out of it. You can't just snap out of it just like that, right? It's not because of just one thing that may be causing it. Yeah, it could be one thing, but it's not just that one thing that may be causing a panic episode, right? So, but I just wanted to point that out and put that out there to every single person that anxiety disorder is completely different from you feeling anxious and all of those things. Like Tammy had mentioned, some of the symptoms could be, shortness of breath, tightness in your stomach, in your chest, even in your head. I've had clients talk about how their head feels so tight. You feel, some people even hear like sound or high pitched sounds in their head, so many things. Nausea, you're feeling sweaty. Yeah, so it's a lot. I know someone whose anxiety, episodes are so severe that it causes her seizures. So that's how bad it is. So for some people, it gets that bad. Again, like Tammy had mentioned, it's on a spectrum as well. All right. So if you suspect if you suspect that you might be experiencing anxiety or you might have an anxiety disorder, I would highly suggest always to seek a therapist and get a proper diagnosis so you know how to then go forward with treatment. Okay. All right. So, Tammy, again, coming back to you, you had talked about how you believe that anxiety could also come from, education and our educational system, the confusion that comes with that area. Can you elaborate? Tell us
bro, where do I start from? So,
from the top.
I'm sorry.
I said from the top. Don't worry. Just take it from the top.
So nursery school. Let me start from nursery school, right? Um, Learning came very easy to me. It was very easy. I learned later on that it also comes with my personality type of being able to just remember things, retain information. So learning came easy to me. I used to do well. I had good grades. I was kind of like a model student and all of that. And usually when you start out like that, especially in this part of the world, people kind of feel like you have your life figured out, like your path is already forged for you. This one is going to be this one is, especially because I was also responsible. in the sense that if I had an assignment, according to my mom, I don't remember this. My mom would tell me that I wouldn't eat until I did my assignments.
Wow.
So I had a high sense of responsibility as well. So, things started off great. Like I was kind of like the dream child type of thing. So nursery school came, was good. Primary school came, was really good. I went for competitions. I won some awards. It was good. Secondary school came. By then I started participating in activities. I used to write. I participated in sports and all these things. I was quite well rounded, right? And school was also good. School was going good. Now, from primary, secondary school, I was thinking about becoming all sorts of things. Okay, I wanted to become a pharmacist. Then I wanted to become a lawyer. Then I think by the time I got to secondary school, I was on law. Like I was thinking about then, we were learning and all these things. I still did not know, at this point, I was still on law, like I wasn't really sure, right? But I was doing well. Then, just 3 came and went. Junior school was good. SS1. This was when things started getting
Bad.
just not, yeah. So, SS1 third term, that's usually when you have to decide on your major, whether you want
Yeah.
to do arts or science. Now, at that point, to be honest, I did I enjoyed art subjects, right? But I felt that there was a stigma attached to the arts, at least in my school. Like if you went for arts, it was kind of like you were not as smart,
As
you
much
were
yeah.
yeah, you were not as smart and you were just not able to do science
You're just
subjects.
joking. Yeah, you will not pass chemistry if you were to take chemistry. You will not pass physics
Yeah,
if you were to take physics. So
yeah.
go and do literature and arts, or go and do something of that nature. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I even
Yeah.
remember there was like while we were deciding, I remember our principal came with a science student in SS3 that was struggling in the sciences.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just basically citing that, this can happen to you. If you know that you're struggling now and you want to choose sciences, this can happen to you, kind of thing. So I don't know, at that point I just felt like for somebody that was doing well in school, it just made logical sense. It just made more
Yeah.
sense to go in the direction of sciences, but I did very strongly consider the arts, right? So I then ended up choosing sciences. At first, it was good, it was okay, but with time, I just started really, really struggling. Like I started struggling with the science subjects, like the physics, the further maths. Oh my God, I was just really, really struggling. And it did not seem to just be an academic thing. It seemed to have started, it seems to affect other other areas of my life as well, right? Because I remember, maybe not in SS1 yet, I think by SS2 was when I started, I think as a result of the struggle, I started kind of withdrawing. I remember towards the end of my secondary school years, I didn't really enjoy it. I started withdrawing, and then education coupled with just the way we were, the kind of teachings that we had. So we had this club, very religious club, and there were things that they discouraged, right? So, for example, I used to dance, and it was a lot of secular music, but then they'd be like, "Oh, talk about Freemason and Illuminati, and these lyrics mean this and that, and all of that." So, things that I was connected to
Yeah.
emotionally, I was like they're telling me that this thing is wrong. So I think that's where confusion kind of sets in for me,
Yeah.
because a lot of things that I was attached to were being challenged. And I'm like, okay, am I supposed to gravitate towards the things that I'm gravitating towards, or the things that come naturally to me, or should I just become this? Because I find that it's as if schools try to shape you into a particular thing, like a prototype of a
Yeah.
human being.
Yeah.
This and this, I don't know,
That
but
box, they want you to fit into a particular box.
yeah, like a particular moral standard and a particular this and a particular that. So it's like, okay, am I supposed to be that and just try to fit into that? Or just, explore my curiosities, especially when it came to creativity and stuff like that. So I think a lot of things played a role in just how I became in SS2. So academics coupled with everything that I was feeding myself with and everything I was absorbing. It's like, okay, so at that point it's confusion setting, and I kind of let go of making decisions. Like I didn't know what was true, right? In fact, I thought the best thing, especially that Bible verse that says, honor your father and your mother. I
Mm.
thought that the best thing to do was just let go and let your guardians lead, let the people that take care of you lead. I thought that was you being humble and respectful and all of that, right? So I stopped taking charge and I stopped being actively involved and responsible for my life. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where things started shaking. So when it came time to so I didn't go to university straight. I went to an A-level school. When it was time to select subjects and all these things, I didn't even know what I was doing. Like at this point, I did not even know. Actually, towards the end of secondary school, I had moved from law to architecture. I think I even mentioned surgeon. I mentioned engineering at some point. Like
I can imagine.
confusion. I didn't know. So when it was time to go on to college or I don't know, not foundation, it wasn't a foundation year because it was a 2-year course, A levels. It was A
A
levels.
level.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I did. I didn't even know where I was going. I just picked random subjects. So at that point, I did psychology, I did environmental studies, I did mathematics and chemistry, but I didn't know what I was going to do with it, right? So during the course, it was okay. And at that point, when it came time to then, choose a major, I was gravitating towards like economics or psychology. Actually, at that point, does psychology come to mind? I don't think so. I think it was more just economics or bio something,
Mm.
one of the biochemistry or
Biocourses.
biological, that would kind of set me up to get into medical school later on, right? But I wasn't sure. Now, at the point when I was contemplating, I had, calls with my family, and at that point, my dad really wanted me to get into medical school or forge the path of, a medical doctor. And his logic it made sense, right? Job security, money, and the whole thing. It made sense. So I'm like, hey, at that point, I was still on the whole honor your father and your mother type thing. What were my options really? I think in retrospect, the best thing I could have done for myself at that point was just to stop. Like, I don't think I was ready for university. I think I just needed to stop. But, you know, as a Nigerian child, you have to just keep going.
Have
So the
to.
next thing was, yeah, so the next thing was medicine. Okay, let's go and do medicine now. So at that point, I had to, so I did my A levels in the UK. But at that point, I think a lot of people were having difficulty getting into medical school in the UK. So I was advised to find a different country that would be easier for me to get into if I was going to medical school. So I now decided to go to, well, I didn't decide. Well, eventually I decided, but it was advised that I go to Hungary, right?
Oh,
So I ended up in Hungary. Now in Hungary, the thing is, by the time it was time to apply for medicine and all of that, like to medical schools, it was already too late to apply directly to the schools. So I had to do another pre-med program after doing the foundation program, after doing the A-levels. So yeah, so I now went to Hungary and did 1 year of,
Tammy,
yes.
sorry for cutting you short. Just 1 minute. I just wanted, so we have received questions already. So I just wanted to let people know that we'll take the questions, but I do not want to interrupt Tammy. So we'll take the questions toward like when she's done explaining to us and giving us, how confusion and all of the things play out with anxiety. So just stay till towards the end, and we'll definitely answer your questions. Please go ahead. Leave us more questions, by the way, but we'll get to them. Please go ahead.
No, no worries. So yeah, so I ended up in Hungary and I did my 1 year course. It was good. It went well. But by the time I finished, I remember I was losing a lot of hair and I was losing a lot of weight. and I wasn't really like I was giving a lot of myself to get the grades that I needed to get into medical school. Like it didn't feel, I know that education in general is not easy, but it didn't feel like it was worth it. Like all the stress and all the things. Like I felt like for someone like me, I needed to enjoy what I was learning a little bit more than I was, right? So I noticed that. But anyways, it came and it went, and I got into medical school in Hungary, and then I started my medical school journey. So first year came. First year started off well. Like the first few tests we had were good. But then I think like maybe like 3 months in, we had this big anatomy exam. And oh my God, I think that was the first time I experienced a fail. And the thing is, in medical school, the fail was the way the way you were assessed was orally. They called it the oral exam, and you were assessed in front of your peers, right?
Oh,
So
wow.
if you failed in front of your
You're failing in
peers,
public.
yeah. And I hadn't learned to fail. I wasn't like I didn't know.
What is your
Failure
feel?
is. Yeah, I didn't know what it felt like. It was just strange. It was very strange to me. And at that point, I used to embarrass very easily. So feeling in front of my classmates was such a big deal, especially because I had started off well. So it was such a big deal to me. And I remember crying, like, oh my God. I remember when I went home, I just cried my eyes to sleep. But then, I kept on going. And then more exams came. I don't even know how first year finished, and somehow I don't know. I don't
Made
know.
it.
But first year came and went and I made it. And then second year was really the pain. Like that was where I really experienced a lot of pain. And I'll say that this was where I started feeling these symptoms of anxiety. Now, I need to make a disclaimer that my anxiety is not diagnosed. I just know that I have it. Right? Like I experience things that hinder my ability to do certain things. Like I experience anxiety symptoms that hinder my ability to do things or make moves. Like it really stifles me. So I know that it's an intense thing. So I'm talking based on that, not based on what a doctor has told me.
Exactly.
So please go to a doctor or a psychotherapist, so please. But yeah, so um in second year I had So some things happened before this exam, but at some point in second year, I was already thinking about. Oh, can you still hear me? Okay. At some
I
point in
can
second
hear
year, I
you
was already
clearly.
thinking about leaving medical. Okay. I was already thinking about leaving medical school. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't really feeling it. I felt like it was just taking too much from me. I was giving too much. It didn't feel like. It felt like it was destroying me. It felt like a part of me was being destroyed. And by the time I would be done with school, I felt like I wouldn't have enough to give as a doctor. I even felt like I felt like medical school was the first step. Oh, can you still hear me? Okay.
I can
I
hear
felt
you
like
loud.
medical kind of like a tip of the iceberg of what medicine entailed. And I felt like if med school was like this for me, and it was taking so much away from me, I felt like I wouldn't be able to keep up with being a doctor. So it wasn't adding up in my head, and I wanted something more, an experience that would be more nourishing to me. So second year came, I was still trying to wing it, but then I had this major exam. It was neuroanatomy exam, tracks and pathways. I remember, and I remember really studying for that exam because it was in two parts. And neuroanatomy was not very easy. It was in two parts. It was a written part and an oral part, right? So the written part came first, and I remember doing the exam and it went really well. I think I had like 90 something percent or something. I was like, oh, okay. So that means the oral will not be so bad. So the oral took place on the same day, and we were all being examined by the same examiner, right? So the examiner came in and was examining people, and it seemed like he was being fair. Like if you performed well on the written and you didn't perform so well on the oral part, he will pass you. Like you pass because it would compensate. So when it came my turn to be examined, another woman walked into the hall to come and examine me. I was like, this should better be good luck. So I then went. And then she was asking me questions. I didn't even think that I was messing up that badly. I think maybe I missed a few questions, but I didn't think I did that badly.
Yeah.
And then this woman then she gave me a feel.
Oh wow.
And I think that was probably one of the most crushing experiences of my medical school
Yeah.
life. And it was still also in front of everybody, and I still not yet really learned how to fail. I think it's maybe by, on average, maybe by like third year that you start really learning how to fail, you know. Or maybe I don't know how it works. But at that point, it was just so crushing for me because I felt like I had put in so much effort. I had really studied, especially for something that I didn't like and I didn't feel connected to. And then I'll now come and feel good. Somehow I shall continued, but at some point in second year, I just felt like I cannot do this thing. I can't do this
Yeah.
thing. So, are you still there?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, because I can't see you. That's why I'm asking.
Oh really?
So,
Oh okay.
yeah,
Let me stop that out. But I can hear you loud and clear, please go ahead.
yeah. So it was after that exam, that anatomy exam, that I started experiencing what I would call panic attacks. Like I started having nightmares. I started having shortness of breath. I started experiencing trembling, and it would not be triggered by anything. Like I'll just be in the apartment that I was staying in, and I would just be experiencing these things, like what you said, the irrational fears, you know. So I remember I used to panic a lot. One time I thought that one time I thought that somebody was banging on my door, you know, and there was nobody there. What else? I remember developing just like the anxiety I was feeling was just intensifying and intensifying. I remember struggling to even attend lectures at some point. There was just something about the whole campus and the whole experience that just got to me. And I don't know, I just said all these weird things.
Yeah.
So that was it for me. It was when I was still losing hair. I forgot the losing hair part. I started losing hair. I
Yeah.
started losing weight. I wasn't really interested in activities that I was interested in before. I wouldn't want to see my friends. I became very reclusive. I was just in my house most of the time. Like, bro, it was horrible. It was horrible. So this was when I just felt like this is not one of those things where you give it time and then by third year or fourth year you get a hang of it and then you just just didn't feel connected to the course enough
Mhm.
proceed with that mentality. So I'm like, nah, I don't want. I don't think this is worth it. I feel like if it is like this, and I go through the journey like this, and endure this kind of suffering, I wouldn't be proud of my degree because it's
Yeah.
just a degree of suffering. That's how I saw it. So I'm just like, nah, I can't do this. So I decided to leave medical school, and then
Oh
breaking
wow.
the news to my
How
breaking
did
the
your
news to my
parents
parents.
take that?
It was not nice. Like my mom, my mom was cool because my mom was prioritizing my life because she used to check up on me very frequently, so she knew what I was going through. You know what? By the time I was leaving med school, I actually started consistently doing well because I remember we had these weekly tests in physio in what's the name of that course? Physiology, and I was doing well, but it was just too much for me. I couldn't do it. It was too much. It was taking away from me. So yeah, at that point, I just told my parents that, look, this is not it. I'm not going to do this.
Happening
I'm
anymore.
sorry. Yeah. So my mom took it well because she thought that like for me to have gotten to that point, because I also persevere a lot. So that for me to have gotten to that point, then I had to leave.
Yeah.
But my dad took me for a long time, for a few months. But yeah, I had to do what I had to do. Then it was a difficult time because I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So trying to research, trying to figure things out by myself. I didn't even know who to talk to. At that point, we had a counselor in school. And I remember having a session with him on the first day, and I didn't like the sessions. He didn't feel like he was hearing me. So I just left, and I was just trying to figure out what to do next. I wanted to even go back to Nigeria at some point, but I'm like, nah, I can't. Then one thing led to another. Found out about this school. It was a school for management, but there was a psychology specialization there. So study psychology in management. So I'm like, okay, this looks cool. I read the curriculum. It looked like something that would engage my mind. I read the mode of assessment. I didn't want to do oral exams anymore. So I
Yeah.
read the mode of assessment, more about writing, and I had written a lot in school, like in secondary school. So, I was like, okay, this resonates. I think I want to do this. So I was prioritizing experience over, in a sense, I was prioritizing experience over degree and job security and all these things. I wasn't really thinking far. I was just
Yeah.
thinking of what will keep me alive, like what would I enjoy,
I'd be
type of
okay
thing.
doing this. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to that school and it was a good decision. However, I really struggled in the beginning. So before in medical school when we would have lectures, it was big lecture halls. Nobody cares about you. You're just there. But in business school, management school, they are training you to work with people,
So it's
right?
smaller.
So the groups were much smaller and you had to engage, you had to talk, you had to contribute, you had to criticize points,
Yeah.
you had to share your thoughts. They would prompt you to speak and say things. And for the life of me, yeah, I'll be in class. Nobody is asking me any nobody is asking me any question. But I will start imagining a scenario in which I'll be asked a question, and that would
Yeah.
make me tremble. Like,
Mm.
God, I remember once I was crying.
Wow.
I was just crying because I was so scared. Like, bro, so they'll put me on the spot and I'd have to speak. It was horrible. Like, and I remember my temperature used to get higher as well. Like, my temperature used to increase in class. So I'd feel my body and it'd be warm and I'd be trembling. And sometimes, if I do speak to somebody, my voice would be shaking. You know, I didn't struggle with any shortness of breath. Like, I was fine in terms of breathing. But my, gosh, it was horrible. It was
Yeah.
horrible. And it was happening a lot in class. It was always happening in class. So I'm just like, okay, this is probably residual from medical school or
Medical
something.
school.
There's
Yeah.
probably something that had taken with me from medical school. So I'm like, okay, I need to see someone. And I didn't even know who to see. But anyways, I ended up seeing the school counselor again. But this time around, it really felt like a safe space. Like I felt like somebody was listening to me. And do you know that just that was enough? Like I didn't really. I mean, it would have been nice. It would have been nice if I was giving some tools. Because now that I've been through a life coaching training program, I've studied tools that people use to help themselves cope with these things. So it would have been nice if I'd gotten tools like that. But I didn't get anything like that. But still, just being able to talk
Speak to
to
somebody was
someone
very.
and
Okay.
and be listened to.
Yeah. So Tammy, just to we'll continue the story, but I wanted to add something, and also one of the questions that someone had asked, right? So we have a question here, but before that, I really wanted to point out when you mentioned that you eventually sought someone, right? Sometimes one of the most difficult things is actually deciding that, you know what, I need to seek someone, I need to seek help, I need help. And then another thing is actually finding the help, right? For a lot of people, it's difficult to find that help. For some people, you are lucky to have found someone. For some people, they may not have found anyone around them. And in your case, the first time you sought help, it was not as beneficial, as helpful as you expected it to be, which is something that a lot of people use in ruling out therapy completely. So some people say, "Oh no, I went to therapy one time. It was horrible. Therapists are horrible. This and that." You went to a bad therapist, or maybe they are not bad, but the therapist's technique and maybe their modus of operandi or however they pronounce those things just did not align with yours, which is one of the most important things in therapy, right? You need to make sure that yourself and your therapist are a great fit before, otherwise there's no point, right? So I just wanted to point that out. And also, I'm glad that you eventually sought help, because that's one thing that a lot of people always forget, right? Again, I am always cautious about, having people on this platform who did not seek any form of help, did not, and they're like, oh, you know what, somehow I got over it. I am not against getting over it or doing it by yourself. However, for some people, it comes off across as, oh, you'll be okay last, you'll be all right. But that's not it. There are some people who are not okay last. Some people can't just remove out of those things, right? So they need the help that they need to get. Now, speaking of that, and you also mentioned that you have gone through a life coaching program. I wanted to take a look at this question that Ophonics, I don't know who, I'm sorry for murdering your name, but they said about anxiety. Come again?
Ofonti.
Oh, Fonty. Okay, thank you. So they said about anxiety. How do you work around assuring yourself when you know you're good at something but don't quite believe it? Right? So remember when you spoke about how, you are good with some of the things in school, but at some point it just was not working for you as much anymore, right? So for someone who may be going through something like that, how do they walk around assuring themselves about it?
Bruh. Um, I'm going to have to draw from my own experience because I experienced
Yes,
that a
please.
lot. Even coming on this live, I was just like, bro, I'll just come here and come and talk nonsense.
Well, you are
But
not talking nonsense.
I think the first thing that I do all the time is breathe. I find that breathing is so underrated. So I kind of bring myself into awareness because, you're somewhere in your head and your thoughts are spiraling. So I think the first thing I do is just become conscious again. Like I'm here, you know, everything around me right now is peaceful and I'm just in my head and things are just being exaggerated in my head. So I call myself out of that. Then the next thing I do is I picture the scenario. Let me go back to the question. You know you're good at something, but don't quite believe it. Okay, if it's about believing something, I go to words of affirmations. And I have some that I have written down for myself. So this is how I personally deal, right? So I just try to remind myself of who I am, of what I can do, of maybe what I've done. Sometimes not even that. But I just try to kind of step into who I am and who I know myself to be. I talk to my friends a lot. A lot of the time when I feel anxious, I have friends that I trust that get it, that experience similar things as me, and I just go to them and I talk to them. And a lot of the time they help me because sometimes you just need a reminder. And for me, my first love language, quote unquote, is words of affirmations. So sometimes I just need to, if I can't get it from myself, which I really try to, I get it from my friends to just remind me that, look,
You
you
gonna
got
be
this.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. I do.
Yeah, but a lot of, I think you should learn, like I have learned to psych myself into believing certain things. I realized that um so for example, I have a fear of posting on social media
Mm.
till today. I have a fear of posting because I don't know. There's just something about being in people's eyes, and I think I associate it with just feeling judged. It's actually a kind of anxiety. It's a social anxiety where I don't want to post anything on social media because I feel, especially when it's not to my friends, because now I have a very close circle of Instagram followers. So I remember when I finished my course, my life coaching certification, and I had to announce it so that I could attract people. It was such a difficult thing for me. And I had to picture the scenario and detail the scenario and all the reasons why I am afraid of it. And then after detailing it, I mean, like, you know, by detailing, I mean picturing it in detail, like who I'm seeing, what it sounds like, what it looks like. Am I in it or am I out of it? And then from after detailing that, I had to change the characteristics of the picture in my head.
Yeah.
Certain characters, or I put a funny sound in the background. I usually use ladder, 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 ladder.
Our Lord Jesus is a Lord. I don't. Can you guys still hear us? Are you here?
I'm
Tammy,
here. I
can
can
you
hear
hear me?
you now.
Okay. All right. All right. You're back.
Yeah. So I put like funny sounds in the background of my imagination, like when I visualize the picture, and I'm trying to just make a caricature of it, like make it less than how I've blown it up in my mind.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of
So
psyching
I
myself.
think, yes, I think that's really important, especially when dealing with anxiety. Why? Because, again, remember what we had said at the beginning of this Instagram live, that anxiety or anxiety disorder is usually from a place of irrational, intense fear. All right. So you have created the worst case scenario in your head. You've imagined the building collapsing on your head, even if you are very certain that that building is as strong as as strong as it gets. But you somehow told yourself so much that this building might collapse. So you're not beginning to believe it, that you are scared of going into that building. This is just a scenario, right? So that's just how it is. Um, that intense fear. So you feeling that what was the question? How do you walk around assuring yourself? Well, you know you are good at something, right? I'm going to also link this question to this other question. Let me put it out there. So we use two birds to kill one stone since we are almost out of time. Okay, I'm going to link it with this other question by, okay, I'm not going to try to pronounce the name. But he said, what are your thoughts on imposter syndrome? Is it linked to panic and anxiety? Right? So you knowing that you're good at something, but you're just worried, what if people don't like this? What if I'm actually terrible? What if it's just me in my head actually believing that like I'm good at this? How have you arrived at that conclusion that you are great at this thing? How have you arrived at that conclusion? Is it because the people who you've done work for believe that you've done a great job? They've given you feedback that, oh my God, Tammy, this thing you did is amazing. It's phenomenal. I've not seen anybody do it like this before. Have you been appraised for your work? Have you gotten constructive feedback for what you've done? And based on all of those feedback, you know that you are good at this thing. Trust me, every single person on earth experiences some episodes or sometimes when they doubt themselves or their abilities and their capabilities, right? But it's now your ability to know that, yeah, I may be just psyching myself up, but yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm good. I know this thing. So, which is why personally in therapy, I always advise, especially if I have creatives as clients, right? Some of my clients who are creative, what I advise them to do is keep what do you call it now, like a feedback journal, or a happy journal, whatever you want to call it, right? So in that journal or in that space, it doesn't have to be a physical journal. You could have a folder in your phone where you collect feedback from people where they've said so many amazing things about your product, about what you've done. You put them all in that folder. This is also addressing the imposter syndrome, all right? So you put them all in that folder. You can call it your happy jar, you can call it your feedback column, you can call it whatever you want to call it. And then you have all of this amazing, so it's good. You could even ask your customers or your clients for feedback and put them in that folder. You don't have to share it with the world. You just need to have that. So on those days when you begin to experience those doubts, on those days when you begin to experience those difficulties, you go back to that, you read it, and then you are reminding yourself that you are it. You are in fact, this thing, you sabi. You get. So you know that this is who you are. You know that this is what you've done in the past. Because sometimes our mind focuses on, oh my God, I've not done so much this year. I've not done so much this month. I've not done this. I've not done that. And then you forget all the amazing things that you have done before. And then it begins to feel more anxiety in you. So the more you focus on the positive and the feedback that you have gotten, so it kind of brings you back into realization of who you are. All right. So, what are your thoughts on imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is real, just like I have just mentioned. It's real. So, is it linked to panic and anxiety? Um, when you're experiencing imposter syndrome, depending on the degree and the level and how long you let yourself be in there, you could begin to experience symptoms of anxiety or panic attacks. All right, depending on how long you've let yourself in there, depending on your circle, depending on how you help yourself out of those things. All right. Um, ooh, we're racing against time here because I heard that once it's an hour, Instagram cuts the live and we'll have to save this. Okay,
It's already
so
been
it's almost we
wow.
have 5 minutes left. So okay, Tammy, how do you feel about this question? So she
Okay,
says,
which question?
Miss JM, she says, is the absence of anxiety also a problem? maybe a form of being in denial. What do you think about that?
Personally, I think if you don't experience anxiety, you are blessed and you should thank God.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
I think that's a big blessing and good on you, girl. I'm happy for you.
Yeah. So
That's
I'm
what
just, I agree with you, Demi, completely because I've seen how devastating and how crippling anxiety can get for some people. So again, this will just, I like to bring this a lot to the forefront because people kind of, forget that there's a difference between experiencing anxiety and actually having an anxiety disorder. All right. Every now and then we all feel anxious. Every now and then you feel like you're not good enough. Every now and then you feel all of those things. But then there's a difference between anxiety and actual anxiety disorder. So if you're talking about anxiety disorder, it is a blessing that you do not have anxiety disorder, and it's good. It's okay. It's not you living in denial. All right. If you do not have anxiety disorder, it means you don't have anxiety disorder. However, if you mean you never feel anxious for anything at all in life, anything at all, no matter how huge, no matter how small. Maybe it could be good. Maybe it's a form of living in denial. You know yourself best. Ask yourself questions. Ask yourself questions. Are you avoiding? Are you avoiding? Or are you preparing? Have you prepared yourself so much that say you have an Instagram live now, you are like, you know what, this Instagram live, I'm going to have a backup of backup of backup. I'm going to have this, I'm going to have that. So you, if anything falls, you are prepared for 10 plans then, you know. All right. So ask yourself those questions. But if you do not, yeah. So, but if you do not have an anxiety disorder, it is not you living in denial. Anxiety disorder is an actual disorder, it is an actual illness that needs to be taken care of. All right, let me see if we have one more question so we can call it. Um, okay,
a life.
yeah. Okay, we've just answered this one. Is it possible to live? Okay. Is it possible to live in absolute fearlessness? Absolute fearlessness. I don't like when people use the word absolute for a lot of things, right? Because you are yet to experience things. We are all living, we're all experiencing people, experiencing new things, meeting new challenges in life. So absolute fearlessness, I don't know about that. I feel anxious. I feel fear once in a while about certain things. I'm sure Tammy does as well. I'm sure every other person on this call does, right? We all feel this feeling once in a while. So I don't know about absolute fearlessness, but it's possible to have, just be anxious that, oh my God, I'm waiting for this email. I'm so scared. Would it pull through? Would it not pull through? I get that. But I don't know. Tell me, what do you think?
I think if that's a possibility, actually the question is if it is possible. I don't know if it's possible, but
Exactly.
I think that it might be problematic because fear is also your body trying to protect you sometimes.
Yes, yes, yes.
From a place of fear, sometimes it's a thing where you either have to run or
Or
leave a
live.
situation.
Yeah.
Maybe a situation is not healthy for you or something. It's kind of like an alarm that's ringing sometimes. So I don't know if it's possible. Maybe there are people out there.
Maybe true,
That's
true.
it.
I agree with you because yes,
I don't
your body's fight or fight response, flight or fight response, it's good. So if you're one of them and you never experienced anything like fear, anxiety, whatsoever, please send us a DM. All right, we would like to just chat about it. Just chat. We're not saying anything else, just to chat about it. But anyway, thank you guys so much for all of the questions. Tammy, it's been an absolute delight having you here. I'm hoping that when we call you for part two, you show up. We hope that we'll call you for part two because I feel like there's a lot more that we haven't even gone into. So hopefully maybe we'll reschedule and get another date with you to come on here and we'll talk about this because it's important that we have this conversation. All right.
Yes.
Yeah. So before we go, where can people find you, Tammy? Where can they find you if they need a life coach or they need to? Tammy, I need to ask you a question about this confusion. Where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram at verbally yours, VERBALLYYOURS. I'm on LinkedIn, Tammy Campbell. I'm on WhatsApp. I'll put my number somewhere.
Okay.
You can find me everywhere. I'm on Afro Soul Arena. That's another Instagram page that I have called Afro Soul Arena. It's really fun if you're into Nigerian music or African music.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's how
So
you can find.
what we'll do is I'm going to tag all of these things that Tammy had mentioned when we save this Instagram live. I'm going to tag all of it in the caption so you can reach Tammy. Again, thank you guys so much for showing up, and I hope to see you guys in the next month's topic of the month. And do well if you need anyone to talk to, if you need someone to talk to at any time, use the link in our bio. Sec Bible Foundation has a free counseling service from the comfort of your home. So you can use that, just send a DM or use the link in our bio. I'll see you guys next month. Thank you so much, Tammy. Thank you guys for staying through the live
Thank you
session.
for having me. And I
My
love the work you're
pleasure.
doing. Well,
Thank you.
absolutely
Thank
love
you
the work
so
you're
much. Thank you. All right, then
doing.
have a good week. All
You
right.
too. Take
All right then. Bye.
care.